Welcome to the Learn Beach Volleyball Fast podcast, the podcast where we apply the science of mastering skills faster, stories of successful people, life hacking concepts, and other cool stuff to the sport of beach volleyball. If you're someone who is serious about getting better at the sport and wouldn't mind accelerating your learning curve and career with ideas that have been previously hard to find within the beach volleyball space, you'll probably like it in here. I'm Alex, the host of the podcast as well as the creator of the bigger Learn Beach Volleyball Fast project. Now, let's get started. What's up, I'm Alex and welcome back to the podcast after a sort of a ridiculously long coronavirus pause, which was not intentional. Anyway, in this episode we're going to go back and continue listening to mine and Johan R's conversation about basically all sorts of things that can accelerate your beach volleyball career, how to learn faster, how to plan your life to become a better player faster, etc., which can be a very helpful stuff. I'm sorry, Johan, for this pandemic to have landed straight in between the launching of these episodes. I hope that people still remember something from the first episode and go ahead and listen to this one and learn something new, get some new insights. All right, let's get started.
There have been some famous cases of people on the world tour. If you go to the national tours, I'm sure it's the same. If you look at the famous American brothers, bearded brothers, they party. But the way I look at it is, if you take 1,000 teams that party and 1,000 teams that don't party, and you give them a long time to develop as beach volleyball players, in what group will you have more better players, more successful players? I mean, for one individual, sure, you can party and probably have great success. You can skip mental training, you can skip a lot of things, you can skip leg day. But if you have 1,000 players over 10 or 20 years, the group with the people who lift weights, don't party and do sports psychology will have a better chance.
I agree with you there. There's one of the videos on my YouTube channel that you actually liked is the beach volleyball mindfuck. That I'm gonna mention it here in the podcast because I think it's underwatched.
Sure. I like the rabbit hole videos.
Exactly. And I really think that you're onto something. Like, I think becoming a good beach volleyball player is a bunch of different things working together. And I just believe that the sport as a whole is very underdeveloped. Like, probably I don't know, but maybe we're still very far away from seeing the perfect player. Like, very, very far.
For sure.
And that, so it's kind of like someone's healthy, but they smoked cigarettes for 50 years. Like, it does happen. But it doesn't mean that we should all do it. Because, there's so many variables that even if you do one wrong, you might still be able to make it to the top of the world. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's good just because of that.
And one thing that when you take this up with people, they say, but I need a good life. I need to enjoy things. I train so hard that I need to enjoy things. I need to have a pizza. I need to have a smoke. I need to have some beers. My take on that is, if you think you need those things, you're not doing your job, because you can make yourself enjoy things that are actually good for your beach volleyball career. But I mean, as I said in the beginning, slightly autistic, slightly...
Well, I super agree with that. I don't know if after this whole beach volleyball project, I'm going to create a personal development project, and it's very much going down that line. I mean,
think you can train yourself to eat something healthy instead of a Snickers bar or whatever. Your brain is telling you that a Snickers bar is the best thing you can eat when you're really hungry. But I mean, you can train your brain 100% to making that Snickers bar an apple or a carrot or whatever.
Yeah. Now some of my friends that might or might not hear this are gonna laugh when I say that I stopped eating sugar like 3-4 years ago.
Yep.
Which means that most of the time I've stopped eating sugar.
Yeah.
I don't like candy. It makes me sick.
Yeah, and that's what happens when you stop.
Exactly. It was an experiment of mine. I was like, what would it be like if I just stopped eating candy and sweets for a month or whatever? And my body just like retrained. And after when I tried, I was just like, this is disgusting. This is way too sweet, actually.
And now it's easy, right?
Yeah, now it's super easy. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And I now and then I eat candy just to try it out, and I get stomach pains, and then I stop. Yeah. So now my body's working with me.
Yeah. I haven't been able to. I want to, but I stopped eating gluten stuff a couple of years ago, and so I'm working my way up to sugar.
Take them one at
but I'm not trying to win beach volleyball tournaments anymore.
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of food experiments still left to run, but that's the one that I really, really liked. Yeah, and liked the results of. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
I mean, I think it's hard because if you look at the people who actually succeed in getting really, really exceptionally good at sports. You look at, for example, Zlatan, for example, Coach Kirai in beach volleyball is the perfect example. Mm-hmm. They are kind of weird people. They have something that sort of sticks out. I mean, Coach wrote a book a long time ago. It's a long time.
Is it the autobiography or the beach volleyball one?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's his biography. No, I'm not sure.
Because he has two, at least, I think.
Okay, I've only read one. Maybe I'll have to pick up the other one. But he talks about how his training regime was, and it's weird. I mean, normal people don't train the way he did. If you want to become really, really good, I don't think you can have a normal life and be a very social and appealing person, to be honest. I think there's sort of sometimes you have to pick one or the other. I mean, for anyone, it's the choice between playing a tournament or going to someone's wedding. Yeah. Going out with your friends to a movie and dinner, or going to sleep early to be keen for practice in the morning. It's always those choices. So
yeah, for sure there's going to be those choices at one point or another. I think really the hack to make it much easier is to start really seeing how much happiness it brings you, how much actual joy it brings to your life doing the practice, or becoming better. Like a lot of it is about development. I think a lot of people appreciate how fun it is to become a better human being, better at skills.
But I mean, there are so many choices. Xbox, PlayStation is fun as hell. I mean, you can spend days playing video games. You can fly to an exotic place. You can do whatever. I mean, there are so many choices that just doing the same thing over and over gets boring for most people. And if you Coach Kirai, maybe doesn't get as boring as for other people. For him, it's that drive. I have to be the best.
Do you want to hear a theory there?
Sure.
This is kind of from the Eastern philosophies. Like, I don't know exactly where, but I think it's from the book Mastery by George Leonard, and it talks about Aikido, I think. Yeah. Kind of like I talked before, you can see more possibility. The more you understand the skill and the sub levels of the same skill, you can start seeing more possibilities for your future. But also, the more details you have of a skill, accessibly, like you can access it mentally as you do the skill, the more interesting it becomes doing the skill.
Yeah.
So for me, in the beginning, when I practiced serve receive, I had no idea what I was doing, and I had nothing to focus on. I had no clue what would make me better or worse in serve receive.
Yeah.
I hated it because all I saw was all the shank balls, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
But then once you start getting actually something to work on, something interesting, and maybe even sometimes explore. Like sometimes I just go to practice with like a theory in mind, and like I'm gonna try this out today and see what that leads to. And it almost never leads to exactly what I expected, but it leads to another like train of thought. And then I go down that train of thought. So all of a sudden it just doing like hundreds of passing repetitions becomes like a self-exploration.
Yeah.
And it's actually a journey. Like it can be an adventure. Yeah. It can almost be like traveling, like going to new countries.
I think looking at it like that is gonna help you becoming better and making you want to train more.
Yeah, definitely. Because then it becomes really, really fucking fun to do these tedious reps.
Yeah.
It's almost like.
And I think the shift of mind there also, how you come into your training Saturday morning or Monday morning or whatever. If you go there thinking, oh, do I have to today? I think it's going to be much less productive than if you go there and think there's this example of a family sitting at eating dinner and everyone's looking at their phone being grumpy. You know the drill. And then the day after, the father in the family crashes his car and dies, and they would give anything to have that one dinner back and be happy and talk to each other and be there in the moment. And I think it translates to training beach volleyball. If you can find that mental state of going to practice thinking this is the shit, this is the best I can do. I love training beach volleyball Monday morning before I go to work maybe. Then it will be much more productive.
Yeah. Basically it's just about grabbing the opportunities that you have and using that. Isn't it P1440?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, 1,440 minutes a day. Like, grab them.
I think that's a really interesting interview. What's his name? Kerry Walsh was interviewed by the bars guy. You know
Tom Billio.
Yeah.
Okay, on Impact there.
He interviews Kerry Walsh during one of his podcast episodes, which is really interesting. So that's a good listen.
Okay, so it's Impact Theory and Tom Billio interviews Kerry Walsh.
Yes, and she talks about these things.
Okay, I don't know if I've seen that, but I should.
Yeah.
Or listen to that.
Yeah.
Tom Billio has done some good interviews.
Do you think Kerry will be able to qualify for another Olympics?
Oh shit! Actually, you're asking like. Because I know that you watch these pros so much, and like I'm just so out of that world.
I forgot. I got into my being the podcaster now.
Exactly. I liked how last summer you created a Facebook group that was like, it was something like beach volleyball discussions or something, and you just wrote like, I just need to create a group because I need to talk about beach volleyball and discuss shit. Yeah. Have you been on Volley Talk?
No.
There's an online forum, American one, Volley Talk. And I was back in the days, I was just looking for volleyball information and I found this forum. I was like, yeah, it's great. It's a volleyball forum. Like I can ask questions and get answers and stuff. Yeah. And I was like, what the fuck? They're only talking about games and whoever's gonna win and whoever's gonna partner. Who cares about that? Yeah. I've been so into just like developing myself as a player, which also should include more watching the pros and thinking about those types of things. It's just hasn't been a part of my
Yeah.
my journey so much yet.
You touched upon beach volleyball not being a very developed sport, that we will most likely see players being much better in 10, 20, 50 or 100 years than they are now. And I think one of the problems is that, and this touches on Anders Eriksson's research about deliberate practice as well.
Probably Anders Eriksson for the Americans.
Anders. Yes, Anders.
Because he lives in the States, but he's Swedish.
That we don't know exactly what you have to do to become a world-class beach volleyball player today. There are a number of ways you can do it, and some may work for some and some may not work for some. And what he says basically is that some of the older things you can do, for example, classical music, playing the violin or the piano, or maybe some of the older sports, I don't know, that they are so developed because they've been around for hundreds or thousands of years.
So they have a lot of data of who becomes good.
And when someone wants to become good, you can basically go to a formula. You can go and say, yes, A, B, C, and D. If I do this and I do it really well, I will become one of the best in the world, probably. But beach volleyball isn't close to that.
No, exactly.
So I think when you start looking at teams, you have to be good at making the distinction of, is this player good because of what he or she does here, or despite what she or he is doing here.
Yeah.
So I mean, this guy who's number one in the world, he goes out drinking beers after every tournament. Is he number one in the world because he drinks beer, or despite him drinking beer?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
And when you're starting out trying to become good at something, you're not going to be good at deciding what factors that you should take for yourself. So it's a problem, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And here in that comes all we are drawn to people who sort of present a great exterior. One of the examples is the coach who looks good, has the right stuff on, and talks the great talk. He will have more of an appeal probably to young new players than someone who's standing with dorky glasses and you know where I'm going.
And then you can actually get a data problem, because if the good players go to that coach, then that coach has the good players, which then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy type of thing. Yeah, that's really interesting. Sometimes I love going against things. Because so sometimes if I coach, like here in Gothenburg, I've been coaching, and I know that I'm just here for a short period of time. Sometimes I like deliberately teaching people things that I know others will not teach, just because at least it will get them thinking. Like if I just have one practice for a group to maybe create some sort of impact, at least I can get them thinking, so that in the long term they might get something out of it. Anyway, on that note, alcohol. I had an interesting insight last weekend. I was a little bit drunk on Saturday, and then the finals were on Sunday. And I went there, and I wasn't hungover, but I had this like tiredness, this drunk tiredness. And it was actually really interesting to serve receive, because I ended up playing games where I had no stamina. Like I got very out of breath very quickly because I was tired. But serve receive was really interesting because I had this like relaxedness. That was it's just like some sort of feeling all over your body that somehow you don't really care, but you still want to try to do something. So then your body somehow figures things out. Also, maybe there could be, like, alcohol does connect people. Like, you do create friendships and stuff like that. So, I don't know where I'm going with this. Is there? Do you think? Is there any benefit with alcohol, or any benefit with?
I think. I mean, it sounds like I'm very 1 or 0 here, if you know what I mean. But
I'm not putting you on the spot here.
No,
I'm basically just like wanting to brainstorm, because sometimes these kinds of discussions leads to something very interesting.
I think that the drinking beer, drinking alcohol can have several good things come out of it, of course. But I think that if the sole goal of your existence is to become the best beach volleyball player ever, or that you can ever be, I don't think alcohol should be in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should find another way to get the benefits that you now get from alcohol. So you figure out why do I make better serve receive when I had a couple beers the night before. It's because I'm relaxed. So when I do my normal serve receive, am I tense in some way? Am I nervous? And find, so how can I relax without drinking the beer? Because as you said, the beers had some other negative impact on your play.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, how can I train myself to be calm when I serve receive?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the interesting, sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to like experience something to be able to. Something you understand like conceptually, you have to also experience.
Yeah.
And then you have this like aha moment, like, oh, that's how it actually works.
Yeah.
And I was thinking when I was a little bit hungover and had this relaxation feeling in my serve receive, that I would try to like take a mental snapshot of what this feels like and try to bring it with me.
Yeah.
Which I usually can do very well with drills. That's kind of, well, that's a deep topic, but that's kind of the sole purpose of drills, I think, in one way, is to find feelings and aha moments and then bring them to the game.
Yeah.
But now I realize when I said all of this that I wasn't able to do that with the hangover passing.
Yeah.
Because it's like a different... Like I know what it's like to be too relaxed, and I know what it's like to be too tense in serve receive when I'm sober.
Yeah.
So I wasn't the magic I thought I would be able to find. I wasn't able to find.
Yeah, I mean, by yourself or with a great coach, you can probably find a setting where you drill or you play games or whatever, where you can force yourself to relax during serve receive. You can say, for example, I don't care where the ball goes. I'm just gonna relax.
That's true.
And I mean, just to be clear, I'm not saying that no one should drink alcohol or whatever. I think, to be honest, to be like I touched upon earlier, if you want to be a nice, good, decent person, maybe you shouldn't try to be the best beach volleyball player in the world, because those two might not go together as well.
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe.
But. And we used to do silly stuff back in the day as well. I mean, I lost a king in training once, and I had to run naked out into the soccer field that was right next to the courts and do 10 push-ups in the circle in the middle. And just when I'd done my 10th, people started coming because there was a big game that was supposed to start. So I had to run back naked. But that's not what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought here. Always put the word if in front. If you want to be the best beach volleyball player that you can be. And that's the only thing that matters. You have to do certain things. And that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
If you want to be a normal, decent, good, cool person, and at the same time try and be pretty good at beach volleyball, that works as well.
Yeah, interesting. And I'm not in any way. I actually don't drink too much alcohol. I do it like I find it most fun if you do it like 3 times a year, maybe. because that's I feel like you get the same amount of fun from alcohol per year.
Yeah.
When you can just choose how many times you spread it out on. Almost. It's not exact science math, but
I mean, if to go deeper, I mean, for up and coming players, economy is always an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, people don't. I think that people don't really see the connection between I sleep in a tent before an important tournament instead of taking into a hotel and getting a good night's sleep, but I go out and spend a lot of money on drinks and beers.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's multiple layers.
There's a disconnect.
To this. Yeah.
And yeah, that's. I think I'm gonna do a separate podcast just about that. It's opportunity cost, like actually seeing what you are doing with your time and money and energy.
And I mean, the 15 or 16 episodes that I did for the Swedish beach volley podcast, a big part of it was talking about what I did when I was active and all the mistakes I made. And this was one big one. Spent a lot of money when I went out partying, and then I slept in a tent.
Okay, yeah.
Or I was constantly nagging that we didn't get enough sponsors, or that the club didn't give us enough money. And
so it's basically energy spent in maybe not optimal place.
Yeah.
Interesting. You know what? I have this paper here with a bunch of questions for you, and I haven't even touched it yet.
That's good.
I think that's good. I was like, because I had everything lined up here in this paper except the introduction question.
Yep.
So then I made up an introduction question, and then we've been going on ever since. All right, so let's jump into these questions. Actually, the intro is done. 1 hour 15 minutes or something. Actually, this is. The question is, what made you start the Swedish Beach Volleyball podcast? And the reason I'm starting this podcast is that I wanted to have a format where I can go have longer discussions, go more in depth, because people that are watching YouTube, well, you have to sit in front of your computer. So you can't just listen to it on the go while you're on the way to work or whatever. So it's much easier to actually make long form.
Yeah.
Which I guess I just proved with
a
1 hour 15-minute intro. But so you're the first one that ever actually took the decision to, I mean, anyone can start a podcast of anything basically, but you were the person that like, hey, Sweden needs a beach volleyball podcast.
I actually put quite a lot of thought into why why I started it, and there were, let's see if I remember them, but one big thing was to sort of try and bring the Swedish beach volley community, one extra thing that brings the community closer, and maybe get people talking more about beach volleyball, spreading it, and one of them was, I can't even remember my 3 reasons. One of them was, the third one was that I have sort of a long-term maybe dream of working with personal development, sports coaching, psychology stuff, and having that as what I do.
Yeah.
And I thought a podcast would be a good way of sort of exploring that.
Yeah, it's all practice.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, we wouldn't be talking without you having started the thing. So
yeah. So it's already,
there's always all sorts of benefits.
Yeah.
That's the part of the reason with my project too. Like I'm a guy that's trying to learn the sport, and I realized that if I share some things that maybe people learn from, well, that might lead to something that who knows what that will mean. So I think that's a good reason. Definitely. The next question here is, this is something we discussed a little bit before, which is short-term thinking in beach volleyball. I think it's a very interesting topic of how people in general don't really plan too much, don't really think things through, don't really I don't know if it's laziness or ignorance or maybe it's just, I mean, maybe it's just lack of exposure to ideas sometimes.
Part of it, I think, is just basic pack mentality. You do what you see others do. I mean, when I started out, our practices, they weren't the same every time. We started peppering we peppered for a long time. We peppered for maybe a half an hour or 45 minutes.
Okay.
And then we had in spike for maybe 15 minutes, and then we played games for an hour. That was every practice, every time.
Okay, interesting.
For several years. And I mean, I think that's obviously a sort of dense example, but I think it's the same with everything else. You go to the players who were good when you started playing, you look at them and what they do, and if they do something good or bad, doesn't really matter. You do it anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, and I mean, there aren't that many beach volleyball players who are 22 years old wanting to go to the World Tour or the Olympics who sit and think about the things that we are talking about now.
No.
And you probably should if you want to improve your chances of accomplishing your goals.
At least I can see in my life ever since I started planning things.
Yeah.
Planning with a hint of salt, like having visions and actually thinking things through. It's not always that things go the way you plan or that you know exactly how something's going to happen, but at least you have an idea.
Yeah.
At least you have a vision. At least you have some thought put into it.
I think one of the things that's really hard in beach volleyball is to quantitatively measure improvement. To sort of if you run 100 meters, for example, you can always just measure the time it takes you to run and see if you become better. As a beach volleyball player, I think it's hard to see that, okay, I improved my serve receive 10% over the last 2 months. I'm doing something right. Let's continue doing this. Or
there's a lot of swaying variables. That can be very day to day, and
it's very fluffy to actually see if you've improved. Someone who hasn't seen you in a year might see you and say, yeah, you've really improved.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that would be very beneficial to incorporate into every training. I mean, today we're going to do 200 serve receives. We're going to score. We're going to do minus, 0 or plus, depending on how good it is, and see how many of those 200 were pluses. And then next practice do the same thing, and over a long period of time see if it improves.
Yeah.
But there are also variables making it difficult. Same server, tougher serves, wind, rainy day. But still, I think something is better than nothing in that department. So.
And then also, I think sometimes when you change techniques, you become worse at first, and then after a while you get better. So you need to trust the process of that technique change and be fine with worse numbers for now. And
for sure.
That. But it's of course, I can see a lot of benefit in it actually when you're done with the technique change. Did it make a difference? Or do you just think it makes a difference? Which can give a lot of confidence, and confidence can win games. So it's
one really good thought experiment that I like is what if companies, corporations did their planning the way beach volleyball players plan their practices. It wouldn't turn out very good, right?
No.
I mean, they have deadlines, they have exact goals. We need to sell this much, or we need to have this project done by, and then an exact date. I mean, taking a beach volleyball group, people who want to become better, if they say that by December 1st I need to be able to pass 85% perfect balls, No one ever does that.
No.
Would it improve your chances of getting better? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So
yeah, interesting.
I need to jump 5 centimeters higher by the end of next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do I want to do that? Yeah, okay. So these 4 weeks I need to do this. These next 4 weeks I need to do this.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
And evaluate along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See if it's possible or.
But it takes energy to do that. It's much easier to just show up for practice and swallow whatever your coach says.
Of course it is.
And for some people, that's what they want.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the question: if you want to become the best beach volleyball player you can be,
yeah, exactly.
Then maybe.
Exactly. Yeah, I had this really interesting conversation a couple of months ago with a player, quite high level player, and she said that it had clicked for her when she realized that you can go and do reps, or you can go and actually do reps.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was a story that a coach up in Umeå, where I'm from, had told her about this swimmer that had said that the difference for his or her swimming career was when, I don't know if it was a guy or girl, but when he started really feeling the water in the, whatever you call them, like every kick and every drag you take with your arms, like you really feel the movement and you feel where the water is and how you actually get as much water drag with you as possible. And it's probably something I learned quite early from the inner game of tennis and starting to think that way, to really like be conscious of what you're doing and why you're doing it and really have a plan with your practice. But yeah, it's amazing how many people don't have that.
And I think I've been doing this so long now, and I study details so much that I think I can tell. I mean, I may be wrong all the time, but I think I can tell who in a training group is there to actually improve and who's there just to be able to say afterwards that I did the training.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's obviously cutting it very black and white.
Yeah.
But I think I can tell who's really there to damn improve. I mean, really, really damn improve.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's interesting. I had this hack I used to teach. I sometimes teach it when I remember it. I was once we had a stand-in coach who was known to not give so much feedback. But this particular practice, I got a lot of feedback from this coach, and afterwards everyone was like, what the fuck, like how did you get so much feedback? And I literally told them that whoever asks most questions gets the most answers. And that's literally what I teach to people I coach sometimes. If it's a big group and I know I won't have time for everyone, I literally tell them whoever asks most questions will get most answers. Because then me as a coach, I know exactly what's going on in your mind. I don't need to guess. I can answer your direct questions, and it's just easier to coach when it's like that. And whoever you help is going to help you back, and basically you're helping the coach when you're asking questions.
And I mean, training with that, the level of focus, I mean, that, for example, Anders Ericsson again talks about, that level of focus makes training hard. You will be tired, not just in your body, but mentally tired after training 2 hours like that, which is also a skill that you can sort of train yourself to be able to focus intently for a longer period of time. I at least a couple of times I've gotten that reaction, wow, this is really hard training like this, when I sub in for another coach and hold training sessions for people, because they're not used to really putting their mind to it and putting their focus in.
Interesting.
I mean, I may be overstating this, but I think it's something there at least.
Yeah. There's definitely something there. There's a part of me that wants to go back to that Eastern philosophy and say that it can actually be very inspiring to be that focused.
Yeah.
Because you actually get a lot of value from it. But at the same time, as I say that, I also can say that, I probably don't myself have that intense focus for a whole practice. Maybe not. Maybe it goes away.
Yeah.
I think I always have some sort of consciousness of something that I'm working on.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's the key also. You have to become good at stepping in and stepping out of that focus. Because I don't think it's possible maybe to be there for 2 hours.
Maybe not.
So when you go to drink, when you go to do some, I mean, there's always breaks during training. But going back to Kerry Walsh, I think she's the one who always, when she gets on court, if it's a training session or a match, she always takes a little hop over the sideline, which is her way of going into the mental state of, now I'm Kerry, the beach volleyball player, and I'm going to be this and that, focused, strong, whatever. And there's a number of examples I could give of people who have these sort of mental tricks to get into the focused state.
Yeah, interesting.
So I think you have to be good at going back and in and out, and I mean,
almost like a personality change.
Yeah,
instant.
Yeah. I mean, that's. Do you in a game? Do you try to stay in focus between points, or do you go in and out? For some people, the one solution might be better, and for other people, the other solution might be better.
Yeah. Interesting. That makes a lot of sense. One of these questions that I was really stoked to ask you, so I need to take this before we go too long, and I don't have time to ask you. As far as I understand, you're the person in Sweden right now that there's courses for coaches.
Yeah.
So you basically teach coaches how to be a coach.
Yeah.
I want to know what you have learned from having these courses. It's kind of a weird question, but it's like it's not what you're teaching. It's more like, has there been really good conversations or discussions during these coaching courses that you have like had aha moments from, or have you just had an aha moment of the general state of whoever wants to become a beach volleyball coach, or is there any sort of
the first thing that I think of is probably that it's when you've done something for 30 years, it's always going to be hard to remember how little you knew in the beginning. I think for me, maybe particularly, that has been hard to sort of realize.
To jump into their shoes, or
a little bit, yeah. And I'm not saying I'm the all-knowing father of beach volleyball, but I've read a lot, and I've watched a lot, and I've played a lot. Maybe cut this out afterwards.
I think whoever is listening to this and is not going to agree with that, you have seemed to have been doing some thinking.
Yeah, but I mean, people think about problems in very different ways, and beach volleyball is basically a set of problems that you want to solve, and people think about them very differently.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
is there? When you say that, what comes to my mind is straight away like people's past experiences in life, whatever they work with or some other sport they have done, and sort of the solutions that they use there, and then they usually try to bring those types of solution solving mechanisms into the sport. Does that make sense to you?
Maybe it's not something that I've seen very much. For me, it's more that I have a feeling that people's sort of bullshit meter would kick in sooner, because there are people who talk about beach volleyball that don't know what they're talking about. I mean, we all do that sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
But sometimes I feel like some things should be obvious when they're not.
I see.
And that's it goes back to the sunburnt guy with the right clothes saying he's the greatest coach ever.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the nerdy guy with the glasses who's actually the best coach.
Maybe. We'll never know.
But I mean,
someday.
People are interested. That would be one takeaway from holding the courses. When I talk about sports psychology and how to become good at anything, people are really interested most of the time. Not everyone. I've had one guy fall asleep during one course once. But
he wanted to get better at sleep, so he thought, why don't I just practice this straight away?
Most of the time, people are really interested. The problem, I think, is that and I mean, when you go do something like that, when you go to someone giving a speech, you get inspired and it feels cool and you think, yeah, this is the thing. But 2 weeks later, there's 95+% of the time you haven't done any real change. You got inspired for a short while, but you didn't change anything in the long term.
Yeah. And so you feel that effect with the courses?
I mean, I think that if the people who are there take away 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 things from them, that's great. That's the goal of the course.
Yeah.
And I mean, we all work that way. If I read a psychology or a personal development book, for example, I'm not going to remember everything. I'm not going to understand everything.
No.
So
it's almost like, because this is a little bit of a problem I have with beach volleyball too. It's like you need to understand one thing, and then you need to practice it.
Yeah.
And it's so that it becomes something that you actually understand, and then you can take the next one. Yeah. But if you overload, you have 15 million things at once that you try to learn. Well, you're going to pick one of them and learn it, and then the rest you forget.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, do you think it would be more effective to have a coach's course that would be like over a whole semester or something, and it would be like 2 hours, and then then you let them try it out for a couple of weeks, and then 2 hours more? And
well, of course, I mean, the more time you could spend together, the more situations you could put them in, end up in, and you could have more discussions and stuff. I mean, the courses I teach are either 1 day or 2 days. So it's not, I mean, I thought of it when I was head coach here in Gothenburg. I had that as an experiment. Thought that I was hoping that I could do to go with the other coaches for like during the week, during the normal coaching sessions. But I mean, it takes time, and
no, I was basically thinking if you took the same hours as from the course, like a weekend, and then you split up those hours and had them 2 hours here, 2 hours there, but it's evened out over a longer period of time, so that people can learn something, try it out, learn something else, try it out.
Sure. I mean, it's probably easier to learn one thing week number 1 and then learn another thing week number 2 and so on. Yeah, for sure. But I think it's still good. I mean, going back to the question, if you want the best beach volleyball coaches in the world, you would have constant, long drilling of coaches.
Of course. But something is better than nothing.
Yeah.
That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening, and I hope it provided you with some stimulation of your volley nerd brain. Anyway, we're going to continue the conversation with Johan in the next episode, so I hope I see you